one portion of this in particular, one verse, or the whole portion?
The whole portion.
Okay.
I'm looking at the whole portion. Tony's bringing this point out here to show that there are prophecies that are fulfilled multiple times at multiple places and so it's an important point. Why is it an important point? It may not be that important to many people. Why does it strike me as so important? Because I was raised in a theological understanding and trained in a biblical hermeneutic, principles of interpretation, that I can't help but still apply, because that's what I was grounded with my study. So I had to start over again. That's why God had to come in and kind of like break me and then start over again. And so I'm learning some things that I didn't know before, and sometimes I just wonder if there are others that are learning along with me some of these principles. Okay, so let me kind of drive it home by going to the next page. Let's take a look at this. The next page, the one that starts with a great multitude, that Luke 23. Yeah, there it is. That's the one I was looking at. Okay. So we have this passage from Luke, which he says, note that Yeshua stated he's about to be executed. Okay, he continues on, and a great multitude of the people followed him, and women who also mourned and lamented him. But Yeshua, turning to them, said, "Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. For indeed, the days are coming in which they will say, 'Blessed are the barren, wombs that never bore, and breasts which never nursed.' Then they will begin to say to the mountains, 'Fall on us,' and to the hills, 'Cover us.' For if they do these things in the greenwood, what will be done in the dry?" And if you're like me, you're thinking, what are you talking about, Yeshua? What are you talking about here? And so if you look at point A, concerning Yeshua's statement, "For if they do these things in the greenwood, what will be done in the dry?" This statement is taken from a prophecy Ezekiel gave in Ezekiel 20, 45 through 49. However, Yeshua also applied it to the righteous who would die along with the wicked when Jerusalem was destroyed in 70 CE. One prophecy, two fulfillments. One prophecy, two fulfillments. There are several means of studying the times of what are called the last days or the end times. There's a lot of confusion. Tony brings one of these up, and he did earlier this year. We covered that portion about where he debunked the belief of the rapture, how that's not biblical. And he did a great job with that. Well, that's part of what's called pre-trib rapture, is that believers get to escape the tribulation. They get raptured. So only all those bad, evil people stay behind to focus on tribulation. But that's not what's being taught. And Tony does a great job of showing that. So there is terror, there is fear, but there's also hope. There's also hope. But what he's saying here that we need to take to heart is that Believers will fall alongside the unbelievers. The faithful will die alongside the unfaithful. You may see it happen. You may see it happen. Perhaps in your lifetime. There are many who believe that we are in the end days, the last days. Many believe that. I don't know if this is the generation or not. Personally, I don't know. But it could be. And we need to live as if it is. That I'm pretty confident about. The destruction of the temple. Imagine that. This destruction of the temple. It had been prophesied and fulfilled. That destruction by the Babylonians. And Yisrael, Am Yisrael, the people of Israel, were sent into exile to Babylon. That same prophetic verses were fulfilled again. See? Multiple fulfillments. Our God is cyclical. It's come around again. And Rome, this time, was the agent of God's judgment upon Yisrael. In 70 CE. Common error. Some say Christian error. Used to be called AD. It's Latin. The destruction of the temple. And how horrible that was. Yeshua knew it was coming. He told them. He told his own disciples, all these things will be fulfilled in this generation. Glossed over completely by most Christian theologians. Revelation opens up early on. The book of Revelation opens up and says these are things that are shortly to come to pass. I don't know about you, but I think shortly is a lot less than 2,000 years. It was in that time, it was in that day. Those passages were fulfilled. Revelation, for the most part, was fulfilled. But we don't take it to heart. Because we don't, as Christians, we don't. Because as Christians, we don't identify with Am Yisrael. And we have a lot of that. I have a lot of that ingrained within me. It's not good. We need to see ourselves in partnership, as grafted in, as the Apostle Paul said. Rabbi Shaul, grafted in to the branch. We are identified with Am Yisrael, and if we are not, we have no hope. Because if we're not grafted in to the living branch, we're dead. Now, whether we understand it or not, God knows the truth. All right? But isn't it a great blessing to actually embrace the truth and live it and be aware of it? See, we have a lot of struggles going on in our nation right now, don't we? And we've heard time and time again the phrase, God bless America. We have some great songs. Might even have it memorized. God bless America. But who is saying, America, America, bless God? God did not promise to save the United States of America. God did not promise that. How dare we replace our nation? How dare our nation replace Israel in our thinking? That we are worthy of God's blessing, and Israel is not. Israel has the promise. And God is eternal, and He keeps His word. He keeps His word. So, America, bless God. How do we bless God? By blessing Israel. It is promised in Scripture. If you bless Israel, you will be blessed. And that's a promise from God. The converse, if you curse Israel, you will be cursed by God, is also true. Our only hope as a nation, as the United States of America, with all our array of world power, means very little to God. He raises nations up, He brings them down. It's not hard for Him. If we abandon Israel, we will be abandoned. If we want God bless America, then America bless Israel. It's as simple as that. And it's difficult. Go to the next page, please, Kevin. Point 2. There you are. Okay, thank you. Point 2. Follow along with me here. Do you remember what happened in the wilderness when Adonai almost annihilated Am Yisrael, people of Israel, after the sin of Korach's rebellion? A plague, which eventually took 14,700 Israelites and would have decimated the entire nation were it not for the swift action of Moses and Aaron. Aaron took fire from the altar and the censer among the people to provide atonement and keep Adonai from destroying them. We're not taking time to read Revelation 8, 1 through 6, but basically it's talking about 7 angels in heaven being given 7 shofars. And these verses cover the sounding of the first 2 shofars, and the second angel throws fire from the altar of incense in heaven, which is comprised of the prayers of His people and incense from heaven. Divine. Okay. This scripture used to puzzle me until I made the thematic connection between it and what happened in the wilderness. Notice that these events are almost identical. The significance of the action of the angel hurling the fire to the earth is found in the story of Aaron's similar actions. Why did Aaron take his censer into the midst of Am Yisrael? Footnote is that it was to stop the plague. Considering that there will not be a pre-trib rapture, and considering that the saints will need to be purged in the fires of the tribulation wilderness, just as Am Yisrael was purged in the wilderness, and considering that judgment begins in the house of Adonai, judgment begins with us. When God's judgment falls upon this earth, it will begin with us. It will look to the world as if we are the ones being punished by God. And it will look that way to us too, who will be enduring that punishment. I think Revelation 8:5 has the following interpretation. Aaron had to take incense, protective prayers, from the altar out to the people to prevent Adonai from destroying them, potentially the righteous with the wicked. So, you can underline this. So, likewise, I believe that the hurling of the fire to the earth is to prevent Adonai from destroying all of the saints during our judgment. Which I might add is well deserved. Revelation 8:5 is almost an exact picture of the story in Parashat Korach. Fire from the altar needs to be transported somewhere. In the Sidra, it needed to make it amongst Am Yisrael. In Revelation, it needs to make it from heaven to earth. Once again, this is thematically equivalent to what we learned in Sirah Ha'azinu, Devarim 32:36. We will be saved by the bell. How many know what that imagery says? It's a prize fighter's imagery. And you're in the ring, and you're in your bout, and your opponent is knocking the thunder out of you. And you're on your last legs, you're wobbling. One more hit, and you're going to be knocked out. And ding, 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 the bell rings. And you're saved. You get a couple minutes reprieve to recover. All right? Saved by the bell. All right? We will be saved by the bell, so to speak, when it looks like there's no hope left. Now, how bad is it going to get when we will all see, or those that are still around, will see that there's no hope left? It's hopeless. It's hopeless. It's absolutely hopeless. Maybe that's why Yeshua asked if he'd find any faith on the earth when he returned. Now, that's pretty horrible, don't you think? How many think that's pretty horrible? Okay. I think it's pretty horrible. I got my hand up, all right? Now, some of you are thinking, I'm remembering the Saved by the Bell part. Okay, that's good. You can see, it's Rocky, right? Oh, I can't do it. I'm not the. Where's Marcel? Ba bum ba 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 bum ba 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 bum ba 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 bum ba. Yes, victory! We're going to be in defeat. Totally defeated, out of the picture, hopeless, and then the next moment, victory! God's deliverance arrives just in the nick of time. When nobody expected it, there he is, saving his people. And even those of us, I'm not necessarily including myself with those, but it could happen. Those of us that didn't make it will be rejoicing too. Because no failure is final, and so is no death. Death does not win. Death does not win. Death does not win. Okay? We're out of time. So you can take all your questions. I would suggest maybe over to Donnie today. All right, Shabbat Shalom.